So, friends, colleagues, a very warm welcome to today's bilateral discussion that we have thought of for strengthening India's cooperation with Ivory Coast. We are trying to bring in a major dimension of our interest as post-pandemic economies are facing serious challenges in terms of how we go forward. The idea of we engaging with Ivory Coast came up with our ambassador Tangul suggesting us to move forward and see if we can share the development experience that we have in India here and how that can be of help as the world is grappling with low economic growth rates. We are seeing shrinkage in the development cooperation quantums across countries, not only north-south cooperation, but also within south-south, we see the kind of challenges that are coming in. We were expecting the growth rates at the global level to be somewhere close to 2.9% in 2019. It has already gone down, and now a major blow is being expected, as the OECD report 2 weeks back has very clearly shown. The World Bank is also predicting a blow to the GDP growth from 13% to 28%. The economies that are smaller in size are more vulnerable in terms of how they are going to cope up with shrinkage in the global exports markets and also the resource flows. And as a result, a huge unemployment is likely to be the end result of this economic challenge that we are facing. But friends, this is also the time, as you would agree, for us to focus on our institutions and to make efforts in terms of bringing in resilience and economic development trajectory, strong institutions and strong cooperation avenues and the new vistas for our bilateral partnerships. This year, India would be hosting the India-Africa Forum Summit, and the preparations are already on. Whether it would be virtual, I think probably that would be the scenario. What are the details, etc., are being worked out. But we thought instead of waiting for that, we should start, and probably Cote d'Ivoire is the best partnership that we can begin with. So this is the first dialogue that we have in this series, and we would be going forward. Since we have already lost our time, without further ado, I would request Ambassador Sailas Tangul, India's ambassador to Cote d'Ivoire, for his welcome remarks. You have the floor, Mr. Tangul.
Thank you. Excellency Minister of State, His Excellency Patrick Assi, His Excellency Minister Isaac Day, Deputy Secretary General to the Presidency, Ambassador Dr. Mohan, Chairman RIS, Dr. Sachin Chaturvedi, Director General RIS, Ambassador Balakrishna, Dr. Indu Bhushan, CEO Ayushman Bharat, respected panelists, resource person, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, bonjour in Abidjan, and good afternoon in Delhi, Wanakam. At the outset, let me begin by thanking Dr. Professor Sachin Chaturvedi for readily agreeing to Embassy's request to organize this meeting and for arranging resource persons to have a tailor-made interaction on this very interesting and timely topics. Much has been said and done on India-Africa cooperation, but much more remains to be said and, more importantly, done. Today we have come together on a slightly different webinar than other which we have been organizing or attending with many attendees. as today's interaction is between think tank, resource persons from India and policy makers and development planners of Cote d'Ivoire in an effort to take the economy or our cooperation towards knowledge-based economy and information society. Therefore, I would like to think that it is a direct dissemination of right information to the right person at the right time, which is the key. I'm confident that our discussion today would provide food for thought for furthering India-Côte d'Ivoire cooperation, especially in critical areas which we have identified for today's interactions, like the agriculture development, healthcare, IT, and role of civil society. Let me reiterate that in all these identified fields, we have a great complementarities, we have the great capabilities, we just have to come together and leverage our strength and best practices to carry forward our cooperation for win-win cooperation and walk down the road of progress. Uh, Without much ado, in the interest of time, I would just hand over the floor to the chairman of the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Ambassador Tangal. Let me introduce Chairman of the session, Dr. Mohan Kumar. Ambassador Mohan Kumar is Chairperson of RIS. He's also chairing today's session. Ambassador Kumar has had an outstanding career in the Indian Foreign Service, lasting almost for 36 years, which culminated in his posting as India's ambassador to France, based in Paris. Ambassador Kumar is a francophone and has been in a way contributing on our collective understanding on how global governance may move forward. He's also teaching at this point in at the Jindal University and has done his PhD in international trade. He specializes in multilateralism and focuses immensely in terms of how global governance may be further improved, made more relevant for developing countries in general. He had his postings in Bahrain and also his several innings in Geneva. So without further ado, the floor is yours, Dr. Mohan Kumar.
Thank you very much, Sachin. I was hoping to speak in French, but after listening to our colleagues from Côte d'Ivoire, I have lost all incentive to speak in French. They speak such excellent English, so frankly, that wouldn't be necessary at all. So let me at least try to make a few remarks before I hand it over back to you. I want to thank His Excellency, the Minister of State. And by the way, in the African system, the Minister of State is actually one step higher than the minister. Indians may not know this, but that is the French system. It is really a very, very high official, and I hope he will make it at some point to the conference. We are very privileged and honored to have a Minister of State from the President's office. I also want to recognize the chef de cabinet, as they say in French, but also the conseiller, which is the advisors. They're all excellencies, very senior people. The way the President's office works in Francophone countries is something I'm aware of. So I want to compliment you, Sachin, for arranging this. This is an excellent way of starting off the cooperation. I want to recognize my younger colleague, Ambassador Silas Tangal, and he also has done 2 years in Ivory Coast, so he knows the lay of the land. I want to thank Mr. Bhushan, Ms. Chatterjee, Ambassador Bhaskar Balakrishnan and others for joining the session. I think this is vitally important. I myself wanted to make only a couple of remarks. One, that in the post-COVID situation, South-South cooperation becomes even more important and frankly of existential interest. Because I don't think, frankly, and one can say it in this forum, to expect northern countries to help us at a time when they are turning protectionist and they're taking care of their COVID problem and they have their own geopolitical issues would be very naive. So it is for we in the global south to take care of ourselves. And I think I can think of nothing better than South-South cooperation, which is why I was very, very thrilled when Director General Professor Sachin Chaturvedi told me about this. I think there could not be a better time to contemplate cooperation in the South-South. Now, it gets even better. South-South cooperation is excellent, but doing something between India and Africa, and in particular, a country like Côte d'Ivoire, which is in many ways, and I will use this French expression, they are avant-garde, Côte d'Ivoire. In many ways, they set the standard in Africa, especially in French-speaking Africa, Western Africa. So this becomes even more important. I also dare say that I was looking at the concept notes circulated. In many ways, the developmental challenges of Côte d'Ivoire and India are very similar. Very similar. We may be at different stages of development in science and technology and so on, but the economic challenges are very, very similar. Whether you take agriculture, rural development, as you said, Ambassador, the pharmaceutical products, healthcare, affordable housing, and we have people like Mr. Bhushan who can actually talk authoritatively on healthcare and Ayushman Bharat, which is one of our flagship programs. I want to say that the way we contemplate cooperation between India and Africa is fundamentally different from other big powers. Ours is completely a bottoms-up approach where we request for the needs to be made known by Côte d'Ivoire, and then you try to meet those needs through projects, the benefits of which will trickle down to the common man or common woman. This is our approach to development with Africa, and I'm sure it is very relevant for Côte d'Ivoire. The last point I want to make is, and this is something I have been saying in all my speeches, if the success of sustainable development goals have to be achieved on time, there are only two continents which will matter. One, South Asia, in particular India, and the second will be Africa. Without these two continents, you can say goodbye to sustainable development goals. Most of the sustainable development goals have to be achieved in these two continents, South Asia and Africa, because of the numbers involved. And in that sense, whatever experience India has had in achieving sustainable development goals so far, and in going further, we can share that experience. I want to conclude by saying that RIS, which is Research and Information System, and I am addressing this to our African friends, our friends from Côte d'Ivoire, we are really the organization when it comes to South-South cooperation. And if I may say so, there is only one person in India who probably understands South-South cooperation more than anybody else, and that is Professor Sachin Chaturvedi. I say this not to flatter him, but that's just a statement of fact. So I really think our friends from Côte d'Ivoire can avail of this expertise, which we are very happy to share as well. So this is where we are coming from in the RIS. And let me conclude by saying, as Chairman RIS or Chairperson RIS, it gives me immense pleasure to participate in this inaugural session, so that we can then take India-Côte d'Ivoire cooperation forward. So thank you very much, Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, once again for organizing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ambassador Kumar, for very, very pertinent points that you have made. And I'm sure the idea of South-South cooperation would steer through our discussions today, as we would be sharing our experiences in the health sector, agriculture sector, and the role that non-state actors can play in bringing in the development issues to the wider people. I would now be guided by Mr. Tangal, how he suggests us to move forward. Since I do not see the minister as yet, what would be your guidance, Mr. Shailesh?
Let me just check with Monsieur George. Can you hear me? Mr. George.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, Your Excellency.
Is the minister joining us?
Yes,
He is
he's
to
joining
address
us.
now.
But the minister Isaac Day is online, so he will deliver the our side.
Okay, so he can. I think he can deliver the speech now. Yeah, he can deliver his speech now.
I think Isaac, you are on mute. Minister Isaac Day, you are on mute.
No, you have to unmute yourself. Mr. George, you are muted. You have to unmute yourself. And I think minister can speak now to set the tone for our discussion.
Okay.
Oh, hello, you hear me, please? Is it okay?
Yes, I can hear you, the minister.
Okay, thank you very much, my friend, Your Excellency, Ambassador Silas, and thank you, Your Excellencies, the ambassadors, and also key speakers. I want to, on behalf of the Minister of State, Patrick Ashi, who is not, we joined the meeting in a few minutes. I want to thank you on behalf of the President Office and also the government for this opportunity that you want to share your experience of India. You know that actually we are on working our strategy plan for the years 2030. So, and I thank you for the key work concerning Cote d'Ivoire, and also that the South cooperation is very important for us. And every time that we have time to share experience, my friend Silas Sangal, ambassador of India and Côte d'Ivoire, we have worked together on the ICT sectors because I was a former minister of ICT. And actually, I think that we are very proud to share your experience. So the team and also the commitment at the highest levels for cooperation between India and Côte d'Ivoire is here. And I want to say it again. And this meeting that we held on the big conference is very important for us. So I think that when the Minister of State will join us, he will probably have additional key words to thank you, the government of India also, and also all the key speakers or participation this video conference meeting. So thank you again, and we have we are open. We want to learn from you. Okay. Also want to share our experience. Thank you again, and good meeting for everybody. Thank you.
Just a few words of introduction for Mr. Minister Isaac Day. We work very, very closely with him when he was the Minister of Digital Economy and ITC in trying to work out and complete our landmark LOC project, which is Mahatma Gandhi IT and Biotech Park, which has been inaugurated in 2019, and it's doing very, very good, and has been an shining example of India Côte d'Ivoire bilateral cooperation, and how we could do excellent project which is going to benefit not only Indian companies or India, but also Côte d'Ivoire in making Côte d'Ivoire incrementally independent in their efforts for their development of the country. Like ITC Park in Mahatma Gandhi IT Park in Côte d'Ivoire is doing great, and in that park has attracted uh, few Indian companies. Two Indian companies have already set up the pharmaceutical factory there, and we hope that such kind of more project would come up between India and Cote d'Ivoire, and that is precisely the reason why we have arranged this interaction today between the think tanks from India and resource persons from India, and also the policy planners and thinkers of the Cote d'Ivoire government. Thank you, Minister, for being here. And you are in a very, very important position right now, in charge of all important projects in Cote d'Ivoire from the President's office. So we hope that Minister of State will also join us and share his thought and guide us in whatever we have to take forward in this important field that we have identified. So without much ado, I thought I should just introduce this one. So Professor, can we move on to the next session now?
Yes, I think straight away move to the next session, which you are chairing. So thanks, Ambassador Kumar, for taking us through this session. We now focus on the health, and as I said, three sectors we have picked up: health, agriculture, and rural of non-state actors, particularly civil society. So first we would take the health sector. Ambassador Thangal, you can chair the session, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you all once again. Healthcare sector is a segment with special importance in India-Africa cooperation. India has been playing a crucial role in aiding Africa's effort to reach Medicare to its citizens, as well as in fighting the scourge of fatal diseases like HIV/AIDS, malaria, TB, and other pandemics. Enhanced cooperation in health sector assume added importance in view of the current COVID-19 pandemic and management of it to ensure healthy life and healthy cooperation between India and Côte d'Ivoire, or say South-South cooperation. India and Côte d'Ivoire. In Côte d'Ivoire, Indian pharmacy companies are doing great job. They are enjoying lion's shares of local market, and there is a huge scope for expansion. Given this potential, Embassy of India organized first ever India Côte d'Ivoire healthcare seminar with the title Towards Healthy Partnership on the 3rd of March 2020, which was a great success. And for this seminar, we invited, besides pharmaceutical companies from India, the two leading hospitals, the Apollo Hospital, who sent their vice president from Delhi, and Wakat Hospital from Mumbai. They sent their chief marketing officers to come and make a detailed presentation as to what this healthcare cooperation can take India and Côte d'Ivoire to a new level. And I'm very happy to inform here that I was apprehensive at the first, because since that was a specialized sector, I was apprehensive that whether there will be enough people to come. But the hall was filled and people were standing, and the question answer after that went on for more than 2 hours. So it was a great success, but of course, COVID came in after that, and our further step has been delayed. But nevertheless, today, Côte d'Ivoire government is working towards providing universal health coverage to all its citizens. And in these circumstances, who else can be a better partner than India? India has been the capital of low-cost yet quality medicines as well as vaccine to provide healthcare coverage to those who have been largely excluded from former healthcare system. Now, as mentioned by Chairman, our beloved Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi had launched the Ayushman Bharat Yojana, which is a major step towards universal health coverage in India. And we are very indeed fortunate to have Dr. Indu Bhushan, who is the CEO of this program, who would be sharing the challenges and best practices of this one and how we could replicate, how we could take forward this program in a country like Cote d'Ivoire, even as their government is trying to implement the same project. We are also fortunate to have Dr. K. Srinath Reddy, who is a leading light in pharma industry, to share his experience and lesson learned to further our cooperation. I have no doubt that Indian experience and remedies could be more suitably adapted to Cote d'Ivoire healthcare needs. With these few words, ladies and gentlemen, once again, without much ado, let me welcome all of you once again and hand over the floor to Dr. Indu Bhusan, please. Dr. Indu, please.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Thangal and Excellencies and all the colleagues from India and Ivory Coast. It's my pleasure to be speaking to you on Ayushman Bharat. And in the short presentation, I want to show what are the various elements of the scheme and how a scheme like Ayushman Bharat has a potential for expanding universal health coverage and how this scheme can be replicated in any context, including that of Ivory Coast. I'll be sharing a short presentation, and let me just give. I hope my screen is visible right now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I start with the problem we have that we are trying to address. In India, we are very proud to have done many good things in the health sector. We can be proud of the fact that we have eradicated polio, we have reduced maternal mortality in a big way, and all health sector related SDGs were achieved, and we are, or MDGs were achieved. We are on track to achieve all our sustainable development goals well before the deadline. At the same time, we have a few challenges. One major challenge is that we are seeing a shift in the burden of disease. We are seeing a shift from communicable diseases to non-communicable diseases. We have an aging population, which has implications for the health sector. Also, when we look at our healthcare spending, particularly public spending, that remains low. And there is a lot of inequity in terms of how we are spending money, but also the health outcomes. Urban areas tend to have greater access and availability of services. Rural areas don't. There is a problem of the uneven quality of services, both in public sector and private sector. Regulations need to be strengthened. And finally, there is an issue of the affordability of services. There's a high level of out-of-pocket expenditure, which puts a lot of people into poverty. Therefore, that is one major challenge that we have. And our Ayushman Bharat, which means Long Live India, which was launched 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago, tries to address many of these problems that we see in the sector. Long Live India has two legs. One is a comprehensive primary healthcare leg where we are establishing 150,000 health and wellness centers, and that will provide a greater level of primary health care, look at the screening of non-communicable diseases at community level. And the second leg, which provides secondary and tertiary inpatient care for 40% of the population, 40% poorest people in the country. And I'll be talking to you about the second leg, which is also called PMJ, Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. And this is the scheme which is also called, sometimes referred to as Modi Care, because Prime Minister Modi very closely is involved in the design and the vision of this scheme. What is this scheme? This scheme is covering about more than 500 million people, and these are the people who are poor and vulnerable, and about 107 million families. And it covers serious illnesses up to 500,000 rupees, which is about close to $7,000 per year. And so it's and the benefits are portable. It doesn't really matter where you live or where you're from. You can take benefit anywhere in the country, in any of the impaneled hospital. And there's no cap on family size, age, gender, and other pre-existing conditions. So now some of the key elements of the scheme. What is the scheme? First is that who are the beneficiaries. So this is the before I go to the elements of scheme, I just wanted to give you the scorecard. The scheme was launched on 23rd September 2018. So in a week's time, we are going to be celebrating second anniversary of our scheme. And in these 2 months, 2 years, we have provided close to about 13 million treatments. And we have more than right now 23,000 hospitals who have been impaneled. We have provided 125 million electronic cards, and almost half of the hospitals are private hospitals. And I was talking about the portability cases, more than 100,000 portability cases among these 1.13 million treatments that we have. Now, coming to who are the beneficiaries. So we are selecting the beneficiaries based on a census which was done, and in that census we have the list of people who are deprived. We have defined the deprivation based on the assets and wealth those families had, and it is very important to have some objective criteria by which you can select and identify families, and that will be something if any country is planning to have a scheme like that. The first and foremost thing will be to identify who the target group will be. So both for rural areas and urban areas, we have the list of people who are eligible. Of course, there is a problem with the list, but 80 to 90% that list holds, and we use that list through our IT system for identifying our people. Second issue is that the implementation structure. How do we implement the scheme? At the national level, we have National Health Authority, and I'm the CEO of that authority. And we set the guidelines and provide the structure and support for implementing the scheme. At the state level, India has 36 states and union territories, and in the Constitution of India, health is a state subject. Therefore, the key implementation of the scheme is the responsibility is at the state level. Each state, there is a state health agency, which is again headed by a CEO, and they implement they have the key responsibility of implementing the scheme. And down to the district, at each district, we have about 700 districts. 700, I think that's the number, that is right, or is it 7,000? And each district has implemented unit where we are working. Now, how do we pay to the hospital? There are three different models that we are following. One is the assurance model, which is that state government has created a pool, a trust, and that trust is used to pay for any person who gets sick and who needs support. And so state is acting like an insurance company, and they are making the payment. So we give our share to that account. State puts in their own share, and then we make the payment. Second mode some states are following is what you call insurance mode. So they have selected insurance companies based on open competitive bidding, and those insurance companies are paid premium by state and the center, and those insurance companies make the payment. And in some states, they're following mixed or hybrid mode, where up to certain level, insurance companies make the payment, and insurance companies again are selected on competitive basis, and beyond that, state pays. So there are three different models that are being followed, and each model has their own benefits and problems. Mm. Oh, I can't go down somehow. Well, for some reason, I should stop sharing and then share again. Sorry about that. I think
Hello, we have the Minister of State online. The Minister of State, Patrick Ashi, is online.
good morning, Minister. This is Indu Bhushan. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of National Health Authority of India. I was making a presentation on our scheme, which provides health care to more than 500 million people in the country. And I was going through the key elements of the scheme. So should I stop, Pastor Taragal? Would you like to say something, and then maybe I should continue, or I can continue, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, I mean, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear it.
Yes, yes, clearly. Yes, we could hear you loud and clear, Minister. Thank you so much for coming and joining us. Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, Minister.
Can you? Can
Yes,
you
we
hear
can
me?
hear you. Yes.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Of the past 4 minutes of whole presentation on my telephone. Uh, so, been listening very closely to what has been said about I have my telephone with my also been following online. I'm very sorry. To be born. I'm very happy to listen that because I must leave so I can. Oh. Okay, can you hear me?
Minister, your voice is breaking.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, Indu, you can continue. If your slide is, yeah.
All right. So thank you, Ambassador. So I'll continue. So I was saying that for implementing a scheme like this, First of all, we have to have very clear definition of who are the beneficiaries, and we have to have uh, very objective criteria for identifying them. Second thing is that we have to have a structure for implementation, both at federal level, but also at state and lower level. Third thing is that we need to identify what kind of benefits are going to be provided. We have identified 1,393 packages. They relate to all major diseases and health conditions, and those are for each of those health conditions and treatment. We have identified, or we have fixed rates, that how much are they going to be paid. And we are also in the process of developing what we call standard treatment protocols, that for each package, what kind of treatment, what kind of interventions will be provided. So that is the second thing that we need to do. Third thing that we need to do: first, identify a beneficiary. Secondly, structure. Thirdly, define the benefit packages. Fourth, an important thing is to identify and impanel hospitals, both public hospitals and private hospitals. We have a detailed, very specific eligibility criteria, and of course, empanelment is voluntary, and hospitals have to apply. And based on our judgment, we bring them on board. Then we need to have a process. What process is to be followed? I had a slide which I'm not sharing right now because of the paucity of time. Basic idea is that when anyone comes to hospital, the person is checked whether the person is beneficiary or not through our IT system. And after we confirm that this person indeed is Ayushman Bharat beneficiary, and we can also confirm the identity of the person through our biometric information, we register the person, and then we identify what problem this has, and based on that, a pre-authorization for treatment is given electronically for the treatment, and whatever data or documents that need to be submitted are submitted electronically, and after that, the treatment is given, and after the discharge, the claim is also provided, raised electronically, and payment is also done electronically. So end to end, from the identification of the patient to payment, it's the whole system is paperless and is done in electronic fashion. We have a very strong monitoring system, strong dashboard, which will show you who's using services, where the services are being used, what kind of services are being used, what is the state, what is the level of payments, what payments are pending for which hospital, and so on. There's a very detailed dashboard which helps in monitoring the scheme. We have done a lot of work on empowerment of the patients and beneficiaries, because we know that these are the beneficiaries of people who don't have much voice. Therefore, alerting them at each stage what is happening with the wallet of 500,000 rupees is important. So we provide them automatic SMS, there's text messages through their phones. We have a call center, and call center regularly provides them information, but also there's a grievance that is raised through call center, and follow-up action is taken. We have, of course, self-help portal and website that also helps it. We have an app which can provide more information to our beneficiaries, and also provide information about the hospitals which are close by. There's a very strong grievance system, grievance redress system that we run, and we constantly take feedback from beneficiaries. Every person who uses services is asked after their discharge about their experience. We also ask 15 days after the discharge the same person about the outcome of the treatment. There's also a very strong system for tracking and deterring fraud and abuse. We have a zero tolerance policy for fraud and abuse, and we have a strong IT system where we have a lot of many algorithms that are used to assess whether each and every which assesses each and every transaction to see and we raise those triggers which are then followed up, investigate, and activities ourselves to ensure that there is no fraud. So this has been only 2 years, and 2 years is not a long time for a complicated scheme like ours to show
Ouais,
impact level results, but initial results have been
ouais.
very encouraging. Uh, we maintain this
En fait, moi,
momentum
moi, j'entends pas.
in this direction. I'm very sure that the scheme is going to be very helpful and will provide large impact in terms of improving access, reducing out-of-pocket expenditure, improving affordability, and also promoting private sector in the country and reducing the inequity of access that we have currently in the country by promoting investment in the health sector in tier 2, tier 3 cities and rural areas, and finally improving quality of services both in public and private sector. With that, I'll close, and I want to thank again RIS and the organizers of this seminar for inviting us to share our experience again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for the giving us the detailed brief on Ayushman Bharat, and also bringing out the detailed step by step to have end-to-end service to avail this healthcare services. Yes, indeed. The context of one may say that there is no problem in terms of availability because they have the uh, healthcare services, both not only primary but also secondary and tertiary healthcare system. But affordability is still a question, and you have outlined so many steps as to how this can reach wider part of the population, so by adopting such kind of practical step that Ayushman Bharat has devised. So I hope some of the things can be replicated, as I said, even in Cote d'Ivoire, for larger benefits of the people. Right now,
Excellency,
yes, Excellency.
Excellency.
Yes, Excellency.
Did our friends got as a preliminary statement an overall and global comments on where do we stand now and what are our needs in few words?
Excellency,
Yeah.
yeah, Excellency, the Minister, our friend Minister Isaac Deg shared few one, but I would be very grateful if you can share something so that you can set the tone for the discussion now.
Please. Okay, so
The floor is yours, Excellency.
thank you very much, Excellency. And I recall our last meeting on my office and what I told you. And I think
Yes,
these should be the basic principle through which we move forward on that very, very strategic and important relationship that we're starting to build. As you know, I told you that we were working on the 2030 strategic plan for our country. And we want to move from what we've been doing so far for the past 60 years, which I call business as usual, to a real shift of paradigm. Meaning that after 60 years, making an assessment, we have realized that if we keep on doing what we are doing and the way we are working our economic policy, 50 years down, we will not be. So there should be something wrong in what we've been doing so far. And before we go for another program, being a political program, an economic program, whatever, for mainly the financial institutions, so on and so on, maybe we should stop for a minute, look backward, and look our performances during all this time, and then go to see on a few other countries, aspiration countries, benchmark, to see how they have been able to perform, and maybe got an inspiration from them. And that's the path that we use for that 2030 benchmark. And what we discovered is that we were wrong in so many ways. Therefore, because culturally, beyond even knowledge, we have been drawn to think the way the World Bank and the IMF wants us to think, in a very narrow approach, that we feel if we keep on doing that, we are never going to be able to move forward, to be able to absorb the huge growth of population that is waiting for us in the next decades. Yes, for the past 7 to 8 years, we've been able to have 8% average growth of GDP. But we've had that before. But we went into a great drop in our performances because it did not have strong economic foundations. We were just growing through public investment. And that is good for a while. But then you very rapidly reach your ceiling of debt to GDP ratio, and then you just stuck there. Investment were not efficient enough, and everything fall apart, because as we were not able to give job to the young people, many of them that we've trained, the whole country exploded, and it went to political horizon, to everything. Now, in the next couple of years, we're going to have 20 million young people getting on the marketplace. And I cannot tell you where I'm going to find a way to integrate them in the global economy. So the more they are at the age of 20, not knowing what they are going to do, being educated, more problem I'm going to have. And yet the country is full of potential. Arable land, water all over the places, very young manpower, everything. We have realized that we were leading leadership, and we were leading, skills for conception of a new economic policy that is more in line with what is our need. And to make it short, one of the major mistakes is that the financial lending institution have made us think that the role of the state should be the one of a statute, watching what is going on. The private sector is supposed to be the heart and the engine of growth. But yet, who is going to build that private sector? Does it happen just like that? Because I just put a proper framework and the fiscal incentives, and then these people come all over the world for direct foreign investment? No, it doesn't work like that. We just realize that even if we waiting or we expecting the private sector is going to play a major role, the state has to be leading, has to be the chief of the orchestra of everything from A to Z. Don't meaning that the state is getting itself into the production or the productive area, but if there is not a regulator, if not someone who is doing the regulation, then each sector is moving on its way on a global perspective. Each chunk of the global value chain is 40 years back in the palm oil industry. We were, with Malaysia, the leading producer of palm oil nuts. They were producing 500,000 tons, we were producing 300,000 tons. Today, 40 years down, Malaysia is producing 20 million tons. We are producing 500,000 tons. Why? Why are we stopped? Where is the problem? The problem is we used to have production with peasant. We have to have in industry processing that and selling it to outside market. One day, because the industry was the state-owned company and it was filled up with incompetent people, state has to give subsidies to the industry sector to sustain it. And when the IMF came, they say you cannot do that anymore. It's not your role to give subsidy to industry. The whole thing was unbundled. Now the peasants are producer, some private people are doing the industry, some other ones are, sellers. Now, what happened is that the industry is grabbing all the margin. Now the peasants are not motivated to grow anymore. So we could not grow. The industry is happy with that because they prefer to do less production, biggest margin. So at the end of the day, the state globally is losing and the peasant can't even survive from what they are doing. Malaysia didn't do that. Malaysia bought the shares of the private sector in this huge multinational that are doing the processing of palm oil. So they put the sectors within the whole world value chain, meaning there's production, there's industry, there's global marketing, and we all know that the margin is way up in the marketing place. So now you have to find a way to regulate, to share the margin between all actors of the sectors. What are we going to give as margin for the producer to be motivated? What margin should we do to industry, so on and so forth. So we regulate, and they have grown so fast and invaded, the market. And Indonesia, after them, has done the same. 40 years after, we were moving nowhere. No job creation, no value added, nothing. And you can take cashew nut, where we first world producer. You can take cotton, we're still just selling, just cotton. You can take coffee, you can take cocoa, anything you will take. We are yet producing exactly like we are doing 50 years back. No irrigation, no fertilizer, no mechanization. So the yield is so low that people cannot even survive from their own production. And we're selling all that to developed world who are making huge margin. Just to give you an example, in the cocoa sector, the whole value chain of the cocoa sector worldwide is $105 billion. And Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana, representing 60% of the production of the raw material, gain only $5 billion out of these $105 billion. $100 billion is just shared by Europe and the US. It has been like that for 50 years. Now, that cannot continue. The pharmaceutical sectors, we buy all drugs, it has to go to Paris. We are not even producing one single aspirin or anything, Now, that cannot continue like that. The role of the state has to change. We have to be the key player, not as a producer, but as sharing and regulating. Now we have to go to places where just 50 or 60 years back, they were exactly with us. And that's why India is interesting, Vietnam is interesting, Thailand is interesting, Malaysia is interesting, because they are states in India where 60 years back, they were exactly where we are. What did they do? How did they do it to be able to reach where they are right now? We should learn and we should be inspired by the example. What was the role of the state? How did they allow the private sector to move? How was credit allocated, financial resources? How was the agriculture transformed? How were the agriculture who were sometimes illiterate, trained? How did mechanization arise? How did every single step that bring you from just a very low skilled level production system to where they are right now, as a, developing and advanced, So in every single aspect, being agriculture, being industry, being human capital, being everything, being financing, we need to know how you guys did it. So I think that I just wanted to frame it. And also we're turning to you to say now, we know that we cannot move if there are not major changes in our administration, in our governance. Even if we cannot do everything every day, on a single day, yet what will be the next step? What do you need to do to unbundle, to free creation, to improve human skills? Where do you go from where we are? So you are the only guy who can teach us that, because you're not far, ago, you guys were exactly where we are, at least some states, So how did you move? So that's exactly what I want to get from you. On the phase where we are right now, we understand that we have followed too closely and taken as a Bible everything that was said by IMF and the World Bank. Very conservative, trying for us to reach and meet all the key macroeconomic indicators, deficit, debt ratio, inflation. We are very good students, but yet we're not moving forward. There should be something wrong. How you guys did it? So that's, what I wanted to point it out.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you so much for setting the tone for our discussion, for fruitful discussion. I know that important lesson learned. What you have pointed out is a landmark for which we have to look at and move forward even as we move. Excellency, it is always inspiring to hear you speaking as always, and also it re-energizes every one of us to see your passion, your love for the country, and the kind of thought that you are putting in to take the country forward. That is why precisely what I said in my opening remarks, Excellency, that this interaction is slightly different from the general webinar that we have been having or attending with so many attendees. But it's a direct exchange of information between the think tank or resource person and to the the planner and policy maker. So I certainly hope that our interaction today will give us food for thought for our cooperation. Before I go to our panel speaker,
Excellency, yeah, there's when I saw you, and I will, close my remark with it. I told you, please, Excellency, everybody can come, give us money. Can you hear me?
Yes, Excellency, I can hear you.
Everyone can come, lend us money, help us, and do everything. But you, India, you should not do the same. Yes, there's India, Africa meeting regularly. Yes, you're financing projects through your Exim Bank. But please, this is not what we want. We want how we get out of poverty. We don't want you to be competing with the other financial institution to say, yes, we have given more money. The issue is not money.
Exactly.
The issue is, what is the way? And this is more important than any $1 billion that you will give us. America cannot do what you will do. Europe cannot do what you will do. We want to learn the way. We don't want money. Because if you learn us the way, we can grab money all over the world. But if you don't teach us the way, we're going to waste your money like we've been wasting all the money that we've got so far. So let's stop 1 second and not just keep taking money, begging for money to do things that we don't even know, and we don't know where we're going. Africa need to get out of that today. And you, India, cannot do what America is doing, cannot do what Europe is doing. You're not an ambassador like the other one. You are so close to us that when you are in Africa, you feel to India. Like when I'm India, I look over there and say, this is Africa. The help we're expecting from you is to help us think the right way, not to give us money or another project or another this, So I really take this, and that's why I was telling you, I want the think tanks. I want the thinker.
Exactly.
I want the very people in India who were able to transform, these things. And they are, at the position, sometimes at the university, sometimes lost somewhere in a small, apartment, I don't know where, and they are thinking, brain is at the heart of everything. And we have the brain, but yet we want to be guided. So please, the meaning of that is you are in Ivory Coast and you're suffering so much because you see this beautiful country with such potential, sometimes more than some state in India. And you get this leadership and you say, are these people crazy? I cannot understand. How come they can be doing these things? They are really totally crooks by all these things. I want to get this friend out of that. I want to open their eyes, and we're ready for that. Maybe for a certain time, we're not. But the generation we don't want blind eyes follow US or America or Europe. We finish with that. We trust ourselves enough to say we can go our own path, our own way. We should find people who can really guide us trustfully and friendly.
Thank you, Excellency. That is precisely what we have planned for today's, as with the buzzword said as South-South cooperation. Excellency, thank you for your inspiring words. Now, of course, before we go to the next things, I would like to see Dr. Sachin and Ambassador Mohan can make some remarks. What remarks?
Thank you. Thanks, Ambassador Tangal, for getting us in. Thanks, Honorable Minister. My name is Sachin Chaturvedi. I am Director General of the think tank, which is partnering with the Indian Mission, RIS. We are here, a group of economists and social scientists who have got agriculture and our colleagues from the medical sector together to suggest precisely what should be the way forward. And after your very inspiring, motivating speech, as Ambassador just now mentioned, I think my idea would be to turn the next three panels into a group of people who are going to share in 5 minutes each what should be the way forward. And I would very much like to combine the three panels that we had thought of. And Honorable Minister, our idea was to share the fact that India's development achievement goes as much to the state as to non-state actors. And we have identified the role of non-state actors, particularly the civil society organizations, particularly the think tanks, research institutions, and also the other entities that have strengthened the development architecture of India's development. And that, I think, is something which we need to realize. It is not just about development projects, but it is also about, as you very rightly asked, how they are implemented, in what way they are leveraged for the development priorities, which are close to bringing in large number of people in an inclusive manner for our way forward. And for that matter, given the time constraint now that we have, what I would do is to request Professor Srinath Reddy, who is India's leading cardiologist, but much more than that, he left a very cozy government job, and he left various other offers of multilateral institutions like the World Health Organization, and he established his own organization called PHFI, the Public Health Foundation of India, which is India's only think tank in the civil society domain when it comes to the health sector. They have led immunization programs. They have led capacity building programs, and with the Global Development Center of RIS, throughout the pandemic, they have been working very closely with Kenya and Ethiopia to do public capacity building of the officials for coping up with pandemics. So, unfortunately, Dr. Reddy, I have only 5 to 6 minutes left now because I have three panels which we had lined up in agriculture and civil society, and we have to close by 5:30. So, without further ado, I would request the most eminent voice in the Indian health sector. We also had Dr. Indu Bhushan, but he had to leave for another meeting, so he has gone. But I would now request Professor Srinath Reddy, Excellency Honorable Minister, for his remarks. Professor Reddy.
Thank you, Dr. Chaturvedi. Let me begin by taking up where His Excellency the Minister had indicated that there is a very clear need for finding adequate employment opportunities for the large number of young people waiting to enter the labor market. So both in terms of promoting economic growth, where health is a vital investment and an accelerator of the economy, but also a great employment generator, even as the job markets are shrinking in the industry, agriculture, and service sectors, partly because of technology and partly because of other reasons. The healthcare sector, the public health sector are really requiring many more well-trained human resources. And that is where a great opportunity for young people to find creative jobs in countries of Africa as well as globally, they are likely to open up very soon. And therefore, training institutions which can provide those kind of skills, which are nationally useful but also globally transferable, can be a great opportunity for boosting the economy while promoting the health of the country. I will not labor much, sir, on the universal health coverage. Already Dr. Indubhushan has spoken about it. But certainly the principles of availability, accessibility, appropriate and affordable care are very important, along with quality. Quality and access do not compete, and quality and cost also should not compete, because one of the ingredients of quality should be cost optimization. And for that, I believe it's absolutely essential that when we are looking at the three-tier healthcare structure, primary healthcare is given absolute primacy, because it provides services in a totally universal manner, because everybody at some time in the life course will require primary health care. Secondly, it provides the largest package of services. And thirdly, it is the most cost optimizing at the level of the government as well. And I fully agree with the Honorable Minister that the government cannot leave the responsibility only to the private sector. The government has to be the guarantor and the steward, even if it is not the sole provider. So establishing a three-tier healthcare structure with primary healthcare, with adequate connectivity to secondary and tertiary care in a bidirectional fashion is going to be critical. But here the human resources are going to be absolutely important, and that is where the training component comes in. We have been training a large number of primary healthcare providers, both physicians and non-physicians. And in fact, even during the COVID period, in partnership with RIS, we have trained a large number of people in South Asia, Southeast Asia, and Africa, extending in some of our sessions up to 31 countries. And we have the capacity to train both in public health as well as in different areas of clinical care delivery. And we do take people in public health from diverse disciplines, not necessarily only medically trained. But another area where we can actually provide a great deal of support as India, and even as Public Health Foundation of India, is in developing appropriate technologies for healthcare, particularly for primary healthcare, where we can actually bridge some of the gaps in healthcare delivery as well as quality, and bring in the equity dimension as well in terms of access and affordability. So we believe that training and technology are two areas where India can be of great support and service to Côte d'Ivoire, and we can also bring in other models where we can actually try and engage the community also in a much more effective manner with adequate training to become an effective partner and participant in the delivery as well as monitoring of healthcare. So therefore, in the transformational efforts that you're making in the country, Your Excellency, we will be able to provide a great deal of service and support in building a very competent health workforce, providing technologies, and certainly, as you have already mentioned, India's great capacity for producing high quality generic drugs, which are very inexpensive, will also be of great support to your country. So there are many areas in which we can actually ensure that we can build in a much more efficient and equitable and empathetic healthcare system, which provides both horizontal equity in terms of a universal health package, which will provide the universal health coverage to everybody, but also bridge the healthcare gaps between those who are having poor health indicators by ensuring vertical equity as well by adding additional elements. So in the whole area of healthcare planning too, we can be of assistance to you as you desire. So there are very many areas in public health as well as in healthcare that we believe India can play a role, and the Public Health Foundation of India is also at your disposal, Your Excellency, in the manner you desire. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Srinath Reddy, for very, very precise but very sharply focused intervention. What we would request you is to share some notes from you that I can send to our Honorable Ambassador to pass it on further to the Minister for possible connects that we are looking at. Now, I think, friends, the panelists who are listed as Minister has raised some observations. I think we can reconfigure our interventions, which are very sharply focused to answer the questions that Honorable Minister has raised. And let me then, I think, coordinate the panel discussion across the next two panels for us to meet the timeline of 5:30. Ambassador Bhaskar Balakrishnan, I can come to you now in light of Minister's observation. What you think is actual sort of way forward that we see for Côte d'Ivoire to move forward in terms of the development challenges? Just few minutes, what is your quick reflection before I turn to Dr. Anand Kumar Singh and Dr. Rajendran? Dr. Bhaskar Balakrishnan.
Thank you, Sachin. Honorable Minister, it was a pleasure to hear you. I'm also very glad to be in this session. I have worked in Africa and Sudan and Zambia during my career. And Ivory Coast, I recognize, is one of the most prosperous countries in Africa. The per capita GDP is pretty high. The area is 10% of India and population only 2%. It has a very high agricultural potential. Now, since time is short, I will come to some specific points. You see, the challenges facing Ivory Coast is in further developing agro-processing and value addition, sustainability, tackling nutrition and food insecurity, and benefiting from the new emerging Africa Free Trade Area. Coming to some specific ideas, we should look at attracting Indian business to set up joint ventures for agricultural production complexes in Ivory Coast to meet the needs of both countries and also third countries for agro products. Some interesting products, for example, would be oil and edible oils. Activities such as silk production have huge employment and income potential, especially for women. Another promising area is aquaculture. There can be many more such promising areas. I believe that with conducive and enabling policies on both sides, this can be a win-win proposition. Specifically, I would suggest that a formal cooperation agreement could provide a suitable framework. A bilateral agricultural investment agency as a special purpose vehicle could give a push to investment, including from third countries. We should work out specific projects along such lines. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Balakrishnan, for to the minister's perspective that has come up in a very important intervention by the minister. Do we still have Dr. Anand Kumar Singh here with us? He had logged in, and now I do not see him on the screen.
I am here. Good afternoon.
You're here. Oh, great. Very, very nice.
Thank you so much.
Honorable Minister, we have our Deputy Director General, who is in charge of horticulture, and he is going to reflect on possible technical collaborations on farming systems. So, without further ado, Dr. Singh, just a few minutes. What's your two-liners on how you see Côte d'Ivoire moving forward?
I think India has done so well in the last 73, 74 years in terms of production and productivity gains. This was empowered by the technology and our strong connect with the farmers and the academic institutions. This is how we were able to achieve the production quantum much more than what we need today. Our greatest challenge today is that how to handle the quantities of the food grain, which we are producing more than 290 million tons. We are producing more than 317 million tons of horticultural commodities, fruits, vegetables, ornamentals, plantations, so many other crops put together. So we are producing many commodities in quantities much more than what we need for the country. The challenge with us is how to get these things disposed of. We need to have two things: quality competitiveness and cost competitiveness. For that, the power of science and technology and a strong connection with the stakeholders in view of the reaching out to the global market with our strength. I think this is possible to do this, and I think ICR and the Indian government, with the support of the policy, you see, the government of India in the last 150 days, it has come up with the 3 ordinances, which is going to give great impetus on these things. And I think in future these things will be achieved, and probably the Côte d'Ivoire probably can also can get the experience out of these things in the future for the future. And the way we are planning for our future agriculture, market, intelligence, how to handle the technology and the equipment banks, I think it will be possible to achieve the objectives of the government of India to double the income, double the agri exports from $38 billion to $70 billion, or even bring it to the $100 billion, in view of raising the income of the farmers by the turn of 21 and 22. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Singh. I think you have beautifully described the 3 points that probably Honorable Minister was looking at. The mantra for success is first to connect with the stakeholders, bring them in the decision-making process, leverage the strength of technology, and then diversify into the markets for product standardization, particularly for quality control. I think all the 3 points, Dr. Singh, that you have mentioned respond to the minister's query very well. What is the way forward? And minister was posing it in terms of the job stress that all the developing countries are facing, because in the south, all of us have young population, and young population is looking for jobs. So this is absolutely fascinating summary of India's success story as it is unfolding that you have described. So thanks a lot. Thanks, Dr. Singh. I now turn to my colleague, Dr. T.P. Rajendran, who has been spearheading India's movement in organics and was very much part of the ICR system. Dr. Rajendran.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sachin Chaturvedi. I'm happy that I am able to participate in this panel discussion. Ambassador Tanglia and Honorable Minister. A few things which I thought, after listening to the entire gamut of anxieties and the expression of aspiration from the minister's side, I feel that a plunge for assurance of food security and assurance of health security. If these two are plunged together, I think we can work backwards for integrating technology, for integrating collaborators, for integrating financial institutional systems and everything together. But the goal is security of health and food and nutrition. If food and nutrition is not there, health will not be a very big achievement. So let us put all these things together. Precisely speaking, as Dr. Chaturvedi told, organic is a way of life in Africa. And I know personally for sure, Côte d'Ivoire has got a huge amount of natural systems available. It is almost like our South Indian geography and agroclimatic conditions, and all those plantation crops which you have and which you are trying to abandon now to move into food crops and food and nutrition assuring cropping systems. And it's a wonderful imaginative concept which you people are bringing in. India has got a wide experience on it, and we you people on the ground of assurance of production and post-harvest management of your commodities, marketing and commodity business will follow suit if materials are available, commodities are available in plenty. The last thing which I want to say is that food security also is having an idea of food safety. Food safety is important because at farm gate, if your systems are not well placed, if food safety will become a big challenge for your processing and export and internal consumption as well. So I would urge upon the government of Cote d'Ivoire to see that both food security and food safety are put together into one basket and taken forward for the sake of achieving the best possible results which you are aspiring in the next 5 years. Employment, health, and nutrition and food security are three arms of the development goal you people are keeping. I hope we will be able to do some very strong things in this sphere. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rajendran. You have clearly mentioned what probably World Bank would never mention. You have talked about the way trade is to be administered and how we are looking at the dimensions of endogeneity in our growth strategy and development. You have very rightly emphasized on the food safety or biosecurity that is needed apart from the food security. And that's what precisely Ambassador Mohan Kumar was mentioning, that if we have to move towards sustainable development goals, we need to move away from the narrow idea of food security to the larger idea of nutritional security. And you have very rightly emphasized on that. So I'm very thankful to you and to Dr. Singh in the agriculture domain. Both of you have fantastically brought out the broad contours of our presentation. This is excellent. I now turn to my very dear friend, Dr. Rajesh Tandon, who has been a leading figure in India's civil society movement. He has established India's biggest network of CSOs to provide science-based interventions through PRIA, and recently he has taken over as chairman of the FIDC, Forum for Indian Development Cooperation, with fellow developing countries on South-South cooperation. But he himself is an engineer from IIT Kanpur and has been UNESCO chair for promoting science technology policy interventions in our partner countries. He is extremely popular in several of our partner countries where science-based interventions are there. And Rajesh Bhai, before you take over, let me remind you that only one question from Honorable Minister is actually a challenge on the table. So if you are ready to pick up the challenge, please join this panel. The challenge is how you see the world going forward and how you see Africa going forward, irrespective of the multilateral institutions' prescriptions of the Washington Consensus that have adorned most of our countries. But despite of that, India could overcome, and India is going through what we are going through right now in our development experience. So, Rajesh Bhai, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sachin, and thank you very much, Your Excellency. I have been listening to your very profound statement, and I am glad you made that statement, because we are not prescribing solutions to you in this conversation. We are saying what we have done in India and what we have learned from what we have done in India, and maybe some of that learning we can share with you, some of those choices we can discuss with you. But we believe that ultimately your people and your country must find its own solutions. And that's why prescriptions from Paris or Washington or New York don't work. And I would give you three examples in the work that we have been doing lately. India has a very large, historically very vibrant, and very active civil society. It has community level civil society, it has professional civil society, it has civil society which does grassroots level innovative work, which it brings to the attention of the government to make policies. Our policy on gender, our policy on uh, skill training, our policy on water harvesting, our policy on sanitation, our policy on uh, locally food security, our policy on building the capacity of community based organizations and local governments. All these have been first attempted as innovations brought to the notice of the governments, and then it became national policy or national law. So what does civil society contribute in this is a process of finding solutions for the excluded, the solutions for tribals, solutions for migrant workers, solutions for wage labor. So these are solutions which are tried in small scale, brought to the attention of the government, and in partnership with the government, they became national policies. In fact, our several national ministries did not exist earlier. They gradually became national ministries. And our ministries on water and sanitation, on environment and forest, on women's empowerment, on skill building are actually a direct result of this interaction between civil society. The second thing I want to tell you is that our unfortunate history of past colonial divisions. I have worked as a champion of Commonwealth. I have worked as a champion at the level of United Nations. But because your beautiful and important country fell into the hands of the French imperialism and colonialism, we did not have the language or the connectivity. I am very happy to hear that we are transcending that. This afternoon, I was giving a seminar to students and faculty members of Gulu University in northern Uganda. Gulu University is committed to working with communities, agricultural communities, to find solutions. They were forbade, Uganda forbade, had a policy that higher education can only be in English, not in local language. How would local communities develop if their knowledge, their concepts, their ways of doing work, that endogenous things that Dr. Chaturvedi always talks about, are disregarded? So Gulu University today, what I was discussing with them is how your theories, which you have learned from your European masters, you must unlearn in order to listen to the needs of your communities. And we do this capacity building work with civil society in many African countries on two dimensions. One, the role of civil society in national development, and two, endogenous local approaches to civil society functioning, because World Bank and all the multilateral bodies and bilateral bodies don't just twist the arms of the government, they also twist the arms of civil society and think tanks. And the reason that happens is because, as we all know, you send compliance regulations under the green dollar. So I want to suggest to you, therefore, that we would be very happy to work with you and your colleagues in your country to work on, remember the concept of animation that came from the French. This afternoon, I was giving a talk before this to a group of field workers all over from country, 200, on what is empowering animation, but empowering animation with indigenous roots in Indian soil, not French. So empowering animation has to start from here. So we can support you in strengthening local governments. This is an example that will give you great strength. Local government, local leadership, local voice. We have enormous tools and capacities, not just in PRIA, but a number of our partner organizations. We can support you in designing programs which help to partner, policies and programs which help to build partnership between your local civil society, local research institution, lower think tank. And thirdly, we can support your research institutions to look at locally relevant theories and concepts and methodologies. So I look
Vocal for
forward to
local.
future. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajesh Bhai. I think you have captured the nerves very. You have very clearly responded to the minister by saying that it is own capacity. What Mahatma Gandhi used to say: if India can develop by building India's own capacities and not by copying others. Unfortunately, India has taken 70 years to learn it, and with Atmanirbhar Bharat, we are now going back to what we started with. And I'm pleasantly surprised to hear that from Honorable Minister that they also want to adopt a new development model which is localized. So thanks, Rajesh Bhai. I would now turn to the only two ladies on our panel, Dr. Miri Chatterjee and Dr. Debolina Kundu, and we are left with. Unfortunately, 4 minutes. Let me drag that further because the idea was to close this discussion at 5:30. But I think the most important voices of the panel would come now with our women participants, and as was introduced earlier, Dr. Chatterjee is one of the most important women's related organization of India, SEVA, the Self-Employed Women's Association. And this association is working for empowerment of women not only in India, but fortunately they have partnerships in Afghanistan, in several countries in Africa, in Southeast Asia, you name it. And SEVA has been part of that whole process. So, Dr. Chatterjee, you have heard minister's very passionate intervention today, and precisely he was saying that don't be prescriptive. Don't tell us one project or the other project. He was also very clear that India we treat as source for knowledge, as a partner, and not as somebody seeking projects. So we are not there in that ball game. And fortunately, the mission in Ivory Coast or Cote d'Ivoire has partnered with a think tank and not with a project implementation or development unit. So, Dr. Chatterjee, how you see this response that we all are trying to pass on to the Honorable Minister?
Thank you very much, Sachinji, and greetings to Excellencies and all colleagues in Cote d'Ivoire and in India, and fully supportive of His Excellency's vision for his country. We share it. At SEVA, we call it an economy of nurturance that will lead us out of poverty and towards self-reliance. Much has been said about agriculture, so I'm going to focus more on the informal economy, because in both Cote d'Ivoire, I know, and India, the majority of our people are informal workers. They have no jobs. Today they work, today they can feed their children. It's as simple as that. So we have to, where do we start? I'm not being prescriptive, but some guiding principles, as others too have said. We start with people at the center, the poorest and most vulnerable of our people, who are the women of Cote d'Ivoire and India, and who, by the way, are also the powerhouses of our economy. I'd like to say a few words on urban informal economy, because that hasn't been touched upon, and both our countries are urbanizing as well. Our countries have large numbers of women and men who are street vendors. They're not asking for anything from us other than a place in the marketplace where they can sell in peace without interference by the police and local authorities, and perhaps access to financial services. So that would be one good place to start. Similarly, large numbers of women on the African continent and in India are domestic workers. So their needs and their priorities, and home-based workers as well. I'll also like to focus on agriculture, because much has been said, but what hasn't been said perhaps as strongly as needs to be is that agriculture in Cote d'Ivoire and in India is feminized. It's the women of our countries who are the farmers of our countries, who feed us, who grow the cocoa or rice that is exported and bring us the income and valuable foreign exchange. So I think a good place to start, a guiding principle, would be to have women farmers in the center. Second guiding principle, form their collectives. Both civil society, as has been mentioned, and our own Indian government and our state governments have discovered that the collective model, bringing women together in their own self-help groups or cooperatives at the grassroots level, at the decentralized level, is the way to go. It builds their collective strength and bargaining power. It helps them negotiate better prices in the marketplace. It also is like a structure where government can provide inputs, training programs, technology. Women are always left out of technology, women farmers. Many of us have been experimenting with tool libraries. So women have these tools in their control, these collectives, these self-help groups, and then they rent them out also for agriculture activity. Also, once you are in a collective, you may get a seed for licenses. So the kind of exploitative prices that foreign seed companies are charging our farmers will be avoided. And slowly we should also develop our own seed banks and make these available to farmers within a certain radius. I think also the Honorable Minister mentioned about young people. Unfortunately, agriculture in our countries, whether Cote d'Ivoire or India, is not considered cool anymore. So how to make agriculture cool? If you have things like agro-processing, making, all sorts of sort of value-added products. And I don't want to be prescriptive because I've never been to Côte d'Ivoire, although I've been on the African continent many times. Also working with small animals like goats, which I know. We've trained up a lot of people to be para-vets, women to be para-vets as well. That's another income generation. So there are a whole lot of things if we start where people are and build upwards, bottom up, including in the forestry area. An area that women in Africa who've been very interested is our work with herbal remedies. Both of our countries and continents have rich tradition of herbs and traditional medicine. And for young people, IT service centers locally, so they can find out what is the good price for cocoa, what is the good price for vegetables that are available, so that they get the best possible bargaining power. And finally, because I'm also a public health worker, there's a lot of work to be done by training local people, youth, as frontline health workers. In India, if we've been able to do whatever we have in the current pandemic, it's because of frontline primary health workers. So start bottom up, start where people are, start with women, and you won't go wrong.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Chatterjee, for very, very practical suggestions that SEWA has been doing. And today we don't have time, but I think at some point you would like to share with our ambassador the great work that SEWA is doing in terms of promoting financial support for women workers, savings schemes that you have, and the self-help groups that you have nurtured over the years. And I'm very glad that you emphasized on self-reliance, and that's precisely, Honorable Minister, that we wanted to communicate, that the way forward is self-reliance, is to explore the strength of the country, as Rajesh Bhai very rightly said, indigeneity, and exploring our own strength. That is what Mahatma Gandhi taught us. We took time to learn it, but we are learning it, and that is what we share with other countries as a mantra for development. I already see Professor Debolina Kundu here on my screen. She is one of our leading voices on urbanization, and she's representing the National Institute for Urban Affairs in India, NIA, which is the lead research institute with Ministry of Urban Affairs in Africa, and particularly in Ivory Coast and Côte d'Ivoire. We see urbanization emerging as a trend. And Professor Debolina, unfortunately, we had to stop all of our presentations that were prepared. Dr. Chatterjee had sent me very colorful PowerPoint, but I had to stop all that, and I'm just sharing and passing on and re-articulating a very sharp question which has to be answered in 2 minutes or so, on what is the way forward? What is it that Ivory Coast can do to manage the urbanization process in a better way, with less carbon footprint, with less resource intensity, and going forward without borrowing much money? Though they host the African Development Bank in their own capital city of Abidjan, but what is your sort of take on urbanization? And again, as I requested Dr. Chatterjee, that we are, of course, not, but it should not also seem that we are prescriptive of our experience. We are sharing our experience. So from that point of view, what would be your advice?
Thank you, Chair, and Your Excellency, Minister, and dignitaries from both Ivory Coast and India, and my co-panelists. I will not take more than 2 minutes, as has already been indicated. First thing which I would suggest for urbanization to be really sustainable is creation of jobs in urban areas. And what we see in India is basically more of capital intensive development. So the poor people who come from the villages, they cannot secure a good foothold in our cities. I think that process should be reversed, and there should be more of job creation for the poor, which is not happening at the moment. I won't say there is no job creation, but the type of skills that are required in the urban labor market, I think they are for the educated and this partially skilled or more skilled labor force. I think there we need to really either train our rural folk so that they can get absorbed in the urban economy in a manner that they have access to water, to housing, and the basic amenities needed, and that will lead a future course urbanization in a balanced manner. Thank you.
Thanks a lot to Dr. Debulina Kundu. I think you squeezed it very well in terms of the time constraints. I'm extremely sorry that you had to wait so long for the 2-minute intervention. But as you can appreciate, this is a dialogue which we have initiated today with Côte d'Ivoire, and I'm sure we are going to deepen it further. I would request if Ambassador would like to say something at this point before I request Honorable Minister or any of his colleagues to come in and respond to the interventions that have been made, and then Ambassador to close. Mr. Tangal, do we have any of the colleagues who would like to respond? I think Minister has already left. What would be your advice, Ambassador?
The minister is still locking on the screen, but yeah, his cabinet, except the cabinet is still there on video. We can't see the video. But yes, today, thank you so much, Professor, for conducting this interaction based on the tone set by the minister. It clearly brought out that there is a need to connect the disconnect that is having right now be among the policymakers of either health service providers and also consumers. It's same way even in the agriculture field. So there is a clear need for connecting all these stakeholders together to come together and leverage our strengths and practice the best practice to ensure, as I said, availability is here, but then the affordability is the big question, even in healthcare sector. Now, healthcare being one of the human rights, as the minister pointed out, the government of the day has an obligation to partner with all the stakeholders, not only to ensure the accessibility, but also to ensure this affordability healthcare for all. And Dr. Indu Bhushan also pointed out the clear step-by-step kind of stuff, which we have been doing in India. And I hope today's interaction will really certainly give us food for thought to proceed on this line of discussion on the actual action, the line drawn that has been clearly drawn and brought out. So I really thank you and I appreciate your effort in bringing all these panelists, but appropriate panelists who can really puncture at the point where we need to puncture. So this has been a real effective interaction. I don't know, Monsieur Coffee George, whether we would like to make some intervention or ask questions, or the minister, if the minister is there, if the minister would like to intervene at this point before we hand over the floor to Dr. Sachin.
Okay, thank you, Your Excellency. First of all, I would like to share with you the apologize of the Minister of State, who was not able to connect anymore due to some technical issues on his side. So he wants to express his deepest thanks for making the time to share with us part of your knowledge and your experience. This is invaluable for us, especially at a point in time where Côte d'Ivoire is at the crossroad of its development path. We have today a clear vision. We have identified what are our key challenges ahead and what are the threats for on our way forward. But we also know that there are some wonderful opportunities that the country can seize and in many sectors, and sectors that are similar to what you guys have in India. But what we need now is to learn from countries like yours, how you guys have been able to overcome the challenges and transform the opportunities into concrete solutions to improve the well-being of Indian population and also build a stronger and a giant player in the world economy. This webinar, we do hope that this is a first in a long series to come, has been very insightful. I mean, the intervention were quite clear, and we would like, as much as possible, to follow up on this call and maybe to find ways, alternative ways to build this bridge, between our think tank here, the presidency, which is the National Council for Economic Policies, and also your think tank, if that's something that we can envisage at this stage. So again, apologize from the State Minister, and again, much thank you for making the time for us today and sharing your knowledge, your experience, which is something that is invaluable to us. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Mr. Coffee George, for your remarks. I fully agree with you. We are open for partnership, and as Ambassador Tangal has already pointed out, we are keen to establish contacts, and we have a spectrum of opportunities in terms of moving forward with different actors in different sectors. And also, depending on the priorities that you identify, we are there in terms of knowledge sharing, in terms of sharing the details of the institution building, not only within the state and the government, but also outside the government with civil society, with agriculture research institutions, with health institutions, and also with women's groupings and farmers organizations. This is how India is moving forward. We can share our experience, we can articulate the details of our experience, and that probably the choice that you make would be entirely upon you to see how you see the development priorities of the Côte d'Ivoire. I would now request my colleague Abhinav Jha to propose he's from the Global Development Center, GDC at RIS. I would request him to propose the vote of thanks, maybe Abhinav, are you there?
Yes,
Half
sir.
a minute. Okay.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you. So, thank you very much. I think we have had a very interesting, very interactive and sessions full of knowledge. And I'd like to thank all our participants coming in from the Côte d'Ivoire, the cabinet minister, his colleagues. Also, I'd like to thank our DG and our chairman. RIS for facilitating this and as well as our ambassador in the Ivory Coast, Ambassador Salis Thangal. So thank you very much, sir. I'd like to thank all our speakers, excellent, very highly knowledgeable people who have given time to us. Thank you very much. Also to our participants, our attendees who have attended this full session. So thank you all of you, our staff who have helped us a lot. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abhinav. I think the profoundest knowledge that our thank you. Profoundness of knowledge of our speakers and panelists is so evident that they could squeeze their 10 to 12 minutes presentations in 2 minutes. And this is, I think, the wisdom of knowledge that brings in. So I thank everyone, and I Salis Thangal for all his efforts, and to Honorable Minister, as Abhinav has already done. So thanks. We close our interaction here today, and I hope we have made a new beginning, Ambassador Thangal. We have many important organizations, and they would be part of it. I would share the recording of this, as I have already suggested. So we would do that. Thank you on behalf of our
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good one. Bye bye.
Yeah. Really special thanks to you, Professor. You really have done and brought all people who are not only knowledgeable but who has the capability to really come to the point. Indeed, it was really educative for many of us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye bye.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't get to see your handsome face, but I saw you log in always. So thank you for joining through.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was impressive. And I listened and I learned a lot. I wish you keep this. Thank you so much.
Sure. Monsieur Alexander Aka, thank you for joining. Good to see you.